Hello and welcome everybody back to the Inside Our Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our two wins that happened this week. Our first one being a 2-0 win against New York City FC, and our second one being against RSL, which was a 1-0 win, which ultimately got us 3 wins in a row for the first time in the Greg Vanney era. We're going to give our thoughts, our opinions about those games, everything you want to know from those two games, and our thoughts and opinions. So we got to talk about that. Of course, we have some Galaxy news as well. Ventura County, the U17s winning the MLS Next championship over the weekend, which was big, massive for the team, which was a back-to-back championship win. So we're going to talk about that stuff as well. And of course, we got a preview to talk about as well, which is a Cali Clasico, the 101st Cali Clasico this weekend at Stanford Stadium, which is a big game going on this weekend. So a lot of good things to talk about, a lot of interesting things to talk about. So obviously, let's just get started. Of course, with me as always is my co-host, LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I attended 3 games the last week, got to see 3 wins for the first time since Greg Vanney's been manager. Massive week for sure. Definitely very great to see. Very successful week for us for sure. And I'm finally happy to get that out the way, right? We've wanted to see 3 wins in a row for such a long time, and it's good we finally got that.
Yeah, I know. And I said this last week, I think, as well, because when we were talking about the previews, I was like, I don't even want to say 3 wins in a row. It's at this point, it was just we just got to see it to believe it. And then once that actually happened, it was just almost like, damn, we actually got 3 wins in a row. It was almost surprising and shocking, but at the same time, everybody, was happy about it because that was the first time we've done it under Greg Vanney. Obviously, Greg Vanney is probably happy about that. Get that, off his chest, off his shoulders, all the weight of that, just the pressure of just winning those 3 games in a row, right? So obviously that's good for him. And obviously it was a great week, right? It was a good week for the Galaxy, 2 wins in a row, and in a very important week because we, obviously these were 2 difficult matches, with NYC being one of a good team from the East, and then RSL being in first place of the Western Conference at the time. So obviously these were 2 very tough games, going into this week, right? So obviously it's just good to see that we got 6 out of 6 points this week, right? So, but anyways, I think we should just talk about those games. Let's talk about New York City first, which, like I mentioned, was a 2-0 win at home. You had goals by Diego Fagundes, and you had a goal by Dejan Joveljic as well in the first half. Obviously a 2-0 win against New York City, which, again, we are still undefeated at home. A big win at home against a good New York City side. Obviously, maybe wasn't the flashiest wins, but you got the win, and was a win that was definitely much needed at home, and to get the 3 points, right? So, obviously let's talk about the first win. What were your thoughts about that New York City game? And, break it down for me.
Just on the first side note that I thought was kind of funny, imagine I told you after the Chicago game, hey, I believe after this international break, we're going to come out and win 3 games in a row. What would you have thought about that if I told you that right after that Chicago game? You probably would have thought I was full of shit or delusional, right? I was just thinking how I would have reacted to that if someone else told me that.
Like I said, it was at the point where it was just you gotta see to believe it, right? And then, obviously when you saw the Kansas City win, you were just all right, that was a good bounce back win after Chicago. Then obviously with New York, you're just all right, we got to win at home. That's good. And obviously, again, I didn't want to be all right, 3 wins in a row. We got to get 3 wins in a row, because it was just well, we've seen this story so many times before that it hasn't been successful for Greg Vanney, for the Galaxy. And then again, once you saw the fucking, the 3rd win, it was just all right, holy shit, we got it. We finally got it. So obviously, to answer your question, I don't think I would have believed you at all in terms of, getting those 3 wins in a row. So after that Chicago game, I wouldn't have believed you at all. Definitely.
That's fair. But for the New York City game, it was definitely a really good performance at home. We were the first team to beat New York City in 6 games when they had 11 men on the field, because they had a 5-game winning streak and then a man sent off. So you can give us that. And it was a very complete performance overall. I think it was a very good win. A lot of players stepped up and played really well. Our defense got a clean sheet, which is really good. We didn't really see those mistakes we saw in the Kansas City game. You saw people step up offensively, Joveljic got another goal, which is really good. Diego Fagundes gets one early in the second half, which is really good. I think our midfield bounced back a little bit more than it has in recent weeks. And just very good overall. It was a very good performance. Very happy with it. Obviously, I think it was a win that was definitely within reach because New York City was traveling across the country, so they were probably a little bit tired. We even talked about that we had advantages going into this game, and I think you saw those advantages for us. We did what we needed to do. We got those 3 points at home. And yeah, it was a pretty complete performance overall. I was definitely happy with how we played that game.
Yeah, definitely. Like obviously, just the way we got that win was good. Like and like I said, it wasn't flashy, but or anything like that. But it sometimes it doesn't need to be flashy, right? You just got to you got to make it simple. Got to get the job done. And yeah, obviously, we had advantages going into this game, and like you mentioned, we used those advantages against New York City with them with the travel. Obviously, I mentioned last week with the field size, which was maybe we didn't utilize the field size too much, but still, though, we did have that as an advantage, and it did help us at points. And yeah, obviously going into that game, I think the Galaxy went with, again, the right mindset, needing to get those 3 points before going on the road against RSL, knowing that that was going to be a tough game. And yeah, obviously, like you mentioned as well, players stepped up. Diego Fagundes being in the one of those guys stepping up. Gabriel Peck, although he didn't necessarily get a goal or an assist or anything, I think he still played well and gave all the effort. Dejan getting another goal is important for for him this season. So yeah, obviously, like, in terms of the performance, like, yeah, you got to see what we needed to see. You got to see improvements from the defense as well and getting a clean sheet, not making those simple errors that we've always been talking about. So, yeah, obviously, it was a complete performance. And again, I think everybody did their job right and everybody went in with doing their job right. And yeah, obviously you can't complain about how they performed and anything like that. I think it was a good performance and a much needed 3 points that you needed as well going into, RSL.
Maybe the game wasn't super flashy itself, but one goal that was flashy was Diego Fagundes' strike in the second half. That was a very good strike he had right there.
Oh yeah, that goal was so clean out. Like that was like the flashiest part of the game, right? Like I mean that the build up to that goal, the combinations, it was like Peck obviously going down, giving it to Dejan. Dejan sees paints though in the middle, passes it. Diego Fagundes is like, leave it, let me get this, and boom, strikes it perfectly into the goal. And yeah, I mean obviously that goal was it was great. And again, Diego Fagundes, stepping it up, a guy that you wanted to trade for some reason, right? So, but no, I mean, obviously not to give you too much shit, but obviously just like, Diego Fagundes, obviously, what a goal from him and him stepping up this week, which we'll talk about, I guess, in the player side of it. But yeah, obviously, yeah, that goal was great. Like it was really good from the team. But other than that, again, maybe it wasn't too flashy of the game, but you still got the job done, right? So yeah, obviously, like yeah, it was just good to see them to beat that New York side, and I think they did almost everything right for that game, and I think you would sort of agree on that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely for sure. What other points you took away from that game? Because obviously, like I mentioned, it wasn't necessarily the most flashiest, but like anything else, like sort of stood out to you from that team performance in a sense.
Yeah, just very complete overall. Our defense is really good. I think our midfield has been growing since the international break. It's gotten a lot better. And yeah, like you mentioned before, kind of jokingly, but it is true. A guy like Diego Fagundes, I said it wouldn't be a bad idea to move off him because maybe we're not getting the best value out of him. Well, I mean, maybe that's incorrect on my part because he does bring a lot to the team that maybe doesn't appear in the stat sheet. And one of those things that I think a lot of people are highlighting is the fact that he has not lost a game with the Galaxy this year since he's been a starter, right? And you do see a lot that he offers, and maybe he can make other people better. And that was a game he stepped up in a big moment, getting the second goal. So I just think, seeing other guys around us step up is definitely a really good thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like, and it wasn't just only the midfield that stepped up, right? I think we mentioned as well as just the defense, and I think the defense has played, well enough to get a clean sheet, right? I think McCarthy made the right saves. I think for the most part, the defense is was locking down NYC in that game, and even then another thing that I want to take was with the first goal, right? We took advantage of their mistakes, right, with the way they turn over the ball, and Peck, although like I would have liked him to take an early shot. Obviously, we still got the goal with the rebound and stuff like that, right? But at the same time, like you took advantage of those mistakes as well. So I think that's another thing you can look at from that Galaxy side. But the midfield's interesting because obviously there was no Ricky Puig this week. And I think that's obviously like a big thing about about these games, right, is that we haven't had Ricky Puig. Obviously, in the Kansas City game, we still managed to score 4. Here, we still managed to score 2 goals, and with the second goal, we saw a lot of good passing in that one, and the combination plays on that one. So it's like, like it's very interesting how the midfield's been playing without Ricky Puig as well, and as well as without Gaston Brugman. Two guys who are crucial to the midfield, and definitely they've been, the players in the midfield have definitely been stepping up, and I think that's very interesting that, we've been playing well in that part of the field, which I don't know. I don't know if you would think if that's like, obviously we've talked about depth before and things like that, but do you think that could be like a sign of how our depth is improving? Obviously like depth, we still have things we can fill in, but obviously, do you think that's like kind of a sign of our depth improving for the team? And do you think that's probably the best, right now is the best time that our depth is improving considering where we're at in the season?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I've said for a while I really like the Surreal trade because he's been in MLS for a handful of years. He started on winning teams before. I'm still a really big fan of Surreal. I think he's a really good player, and obviously with Brugman's health this year not really being available that much, we've needed Surreal to basically become a starter for us the majority of the year, and you've seen that. And even with the rest of the midfield, I think those guys did a good job too. Who was starting in the midfield that game? I know it was Surreal. I think Delgado started that one, right? He didn't start versus Salt Lake.
Yeah, Delgado started.
It was Fagundes in the middle, I think. Yeah, it was Fagundes too, and you had Payne still out wide. That was his first start. Yeah, I think all those guys did a really good job, honestly. Without Ricky, I think there's much more of a defensive structure in the midfield, which I think is really good. All the guys understand their responsibilities, and I think it's just more of a team unit rather than just looking for one guy to make a play for you, which I think is definitely really good right now.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you got to get those, and you got to make sure your depth steps up in these sort of situations, right? Without Ricky Puig or without Gaston, or just in general, any key players, right? Like like once a key player goes down, somebody has to step up, right? And I think the midfield right now has definitely stepped up. And yeah, you're right. Like there is a little bit more of a defensive structure, right? That's something else that you could kind of take away from not only just this game but also RSLs, that maybe we didn't have as many turnovers in the midfield, didn't have any mistakes in the midfield that caused the defense to have a little bit more trouble. So it's like, yeah, I think there is a bit of a more defensive structure, and I think that's helped a lot within these last 2 games, and specifically also in this one against NYC. But yeah, obviously it's good to see those guys step up and definitely, just do their jobs, right? Just to make it simple and just do your job. I think that's always the best thing you can do is, for players at times, it's just don't make it too complicated, make it simple, and just, do what you need to do. So I think that's a good thing to see as well. But any other points you want to take before we possibly move into players?
No, we can move on now.
All right, then let's talk about a little bit about the players. So let's start off with the defense, of course. Defense, you had John McCarthy, you had Aude, you had Neo, you had Yoshida, and you had Yamane. So I guess sort of usual defense in there. Of course, we got a clean sheet, no goals on this one. How do you feel about the defense? And, what were your thoughts about them?
I'm just going to say this about the defense outright. This is our best possible starting back line. This is the back line I want to see the rest of the year at full strength. Out on the left, Neil and Yoshida at center back, Simane at right back, and McCarthy in goal. I think that's the move going forward for the rest of the year. We obviously thought, like, Garces could come in. We didn't know what was going to happen with Caceres. Like, the center back situation was always a little bit in jeopardy. We didn't know if Mikovic can win his spot again. But I think, at this point, I'm ready to say that this is our best back line going forward for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of the ideal one that everybody wanted, right? Because obviously, like we've always mentioned, like we like the mix of veterans and the youth, right? And I think that's what you get in this defense. Obviously, Audi being a young player, Neil being a young player, Yoshida having the so many years of experience in different leagues, and of course Yamane being an experienced player as well. So I think, yeah, I mean, with the way I think this is the best defense that we can put out, because I think it is the mixture, right? Because we've seen times where when we put Cáceres in or another player in, it doesn't necessarily mix well. But this one, I think that this defense right now is probably the best one we can have, definitely for sure. And I think as a whole, I mean, for this defense, I think again they locked down. I don't think they had too many scenarios where it was very dangerous for NYC or anything like that. So I think the defense for the most part just was calm, cool, and collective in this game. And I think, again, they made it simple, and, and also McCarthy doing the saves that he needed to do, right? So, I think the defense for the whole in this game played very well. And I think that, but like you mentioned, I think this is probably the best, back line we can have that we can put out there for the Galaxy in this, for the season.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Yeah. Any one player that stood out to you in the defense? Anybody that stood out to you in that game?
No, I mean, pretty much this is a game where I think everybody did their job extremely well. That's pretty much how I would put it. There wasn't really one player who was a star for us, just everybody did their job at a high level.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I would agree too. Because again, I think the collectively this was a good performance as well, and especially for the defense. But anyways, yeah, that was the defense. Of course, let's go into the midfield. I know we talked a little bit about the midfield already, and who started. Of course, Cerrillo was in that one. You had Delgado starting as well as Diego Fagundes, and yeah, again we mentioned the midfield, how they stepped up and how well they've been performing without Ricky, without Brookman, but. Yeah, I mean, just in general, I guess in this game, how'd you feel about the midfield, or if there's any player that sort of stood out to you in that midfield?
Yeah, Cerrillo and Delgado were definitely holding it down defensively. Very good performance. I'm very happy with the way both of them are playing right now. They've done an outstanding job. Diego Fagundes steps up with the goal, and that's a very important goal to get early in the second half to give us a 2-goal lead. So overall, I'd say the midfield was very solid. I'd say Delgado definitely stood out with the amount of defending and running he did. Very impressive like usual. But yeah, the midfield had a very good performance, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, like I mentioned before, Diego Fagundes being, I guess, the bright spot of the midfield right now because of how he's been stepping up and the stats that we've mentioned before, how the Galaxy have been undefeated whenever he starts. And yeah, obviously Fagundes has been playing well. Mark Delgado, again, just the engine of that midfield and how much he's been, and like you mentioned, but I think you even posted this on your story. Like, does that guy even get tired with how much running he does and how much he covers? And it's like Mark Delgado right now has been playing well. Right now, in terms of this season and just in general, he had that one point where he got sick and we probably wasn't feeling it for a few games, but now he's been getting back to that form and probably is back to that form now with Mark Delgado. And then Cerrillo, yeah, I mean, obviously, again, doing his job, doing the right things, making it simple. And I think, he's been sort of stepping it up in a sense because, there was at one point where like he might need to step it up, but I think right now Cerrillo's been doing a good job as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously the midfield was good. No turnovers either. Not that, nothing that really, not that many mistakes in the middle of the field. And I think we've definitely, I think the midfield definitely sort of controlled that game in a sense too. So yeah, midfield, I think played very well, in that game. But any other final thoughts you want to say about the midfield before we go into the offense?
Yeah, they all had a good game. They defend really well, and Fagundes stepped up, which is good to see.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And also he got the goal, right? He got that goal in the second half, so that's good as well from him. But anyways, let's talk about the offense now. Offense, you had Gabriel Peck, you had Dejan Joveljic, and you had Joseph Payne still starting. I think this was his first start since ever since he went out for a little bit. So obviously Payne still got the start in this game. And yeah, how'd you feel about the offense? Of course, Dejan scored one in the first half. So how'd you feel about the offense and overall?
I mean, I guess you could say the offense is probably the weakest part of our game that day, but still, I think they did okay. Painter looked a little bit out of it, but still, it's his first game back starting after like a pretty lengthy injury, so it's a little bit fair to expect. Joveljic got his goal, which is good. You always want to see your striker scoring, and that's his job. And I think Peck still had a good game, maybe not as good as he was in Kansas City or this upcoming game, but still, I think he had a solid enough game. And yeah, I think the offense, probably wasn't as good as the midfield and our defense was. I think this was more a game where we were structured very well defensively, but still they did what they needed to do, and Joveljic got his goal.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And that was number 10 for Dejan, right? So now he's in double digits for this season. So obviously that's great for Dejan and his progression throughout the season. And yeah, I mean, I would agree. It's like probably wasn't the best out of the offense. I mean, Payne still was coming back off and starting, and I think he only played up to 65 minutes, which was, a given because I believe Greg Vandy said that that's what he was going to get for that game. And yeah, I mean, obviously Peck, coming off of, performance that he had with Kansas City wasn't his best either, but I think he still gave the effort, still had, the fight within him. And I think that's what's respectable of Gabriel Peck is that he always gives in his all for the whole game. So I think that was, obviously good for him. But yeah, I mean, offense just, it wasn't terrible, I guess, but I think maybe we just weren't as clinical, or maybe we didn't have that many opportunities either. And I guess at the end of the day, when we got those, those few opportunities, we made the most of it, right? With Dejan with the, with the rebound, and of course Diego Fagundes with that second goal. So I guess like we didn't have as many chances, probably weren't the best, but with the little opportunities we had, we still made the most of it. And I think that was the more important part of the offense, and I guess about the game in general, right?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, though. You said we weren't clinical. I disagree on that part. I just think we didn't have a lot of chances in general. But you got to give the Galaxy credit with the chances we did have. We took advantage of all of them pretty much.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's the more important part. It's like maybe it's not necessarily the quantity, but it's also the quality of of what you do with those chances, right? And I think with the quality that I guess sort of the quality that we had with those chances, we made the most of it. So yeah, you can't be too mad about that. And I think that's probably the more important part about the offense, I guess. But still, overall, I think they were okay. But we just didn't have many of those opportunities. But anyways, any other things you want to say about the offense before we move on?
No, that'll pretty much do it.
Okay. How'd you feel about the way they managed the game and maybe the subs in this game? How'd you feel about those?
Who got subbed on? I forgot. I know Miguel Berry came on.
I think Miguel Berry came on once. I don't think it was once Payne still came off. I could be wrong, but I honestly don't remember. I know, the younger players like Tucker Lepley came on like very late in the game, as well as who the other Ventura County player that we had that we called up. I forgot who
Ruben
it was.
Ramos?
No, it was somebody
Ruben
else.
Ramos?
No, Ruben Ramos, because he got called up for Kansas City.
Isaiah Parente?
Yeah, there you go. Isaiah Parente. I know he came on very late in the game, so I don't remember the subs, to be honest. I just didn't remember like the subs or anything. I don't remember all the subs. All I remember was the sort of the last ones that we had. But of course, Miguel Berry came on very early on in that game.
I mean, yeah, what I would say about the game management, though, like outside of the subs, I think we played really well. We played really smart. We kept the ball a lot. We were very solid defensively. We picked and chose our moments to attack, knowing New York was going to try to come at us and try to get a goal back. I think we played smart, which is what I would say. You got to give credit to everybody on that part, the coaches and the players for that.
Yeah, definitely smart and simple. Like I've been saying, right? Like they've been playing smart and simple, and I think that's what, again, doesn't have to be flashy, doesn't have to be over the top, right? To get these wins, sometimes you just got to make, keep it simple to get these wins, right? And I think that's what's good about it. They didn't really overcomplicate things in this game. So yeah, I mean, obviously, the Galaxy were building off that momentum after that Kansas City win, and I think going back at home also definitely helped them too. Being at home again, didn't have to go travel anywhere or anything like that. So definitely for sure that was that also helped them as well in this game. But yeah, they just kept it smart and simple, and I think that's that's not always a bad thing to do when it comes to these sort of games. But anyways, any other final thoughts you want to take from New York before we move on into the RSL game?
I mean, yeah, pretty much a perfect way to sum up this game is the two words smart and simple. That's pretty much a perfect way to sum up how we played and how the game went, which is a really good thing for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Smart and simple. And yeah, that's probably the best two words you can probably take from that game. But yeah, we end up getting the win in that one, so that's all that matters, right? So getting a win at home, still being undefeated, definitely helps the boys build off of that and get momentum into the season, which, by the way, we'll talk about that momentum going into RSL right now, which is our second game on Saturday, going to RSL. A very tough matchup, obviously, because they were the number one, first place in the Western Conference, of course, going up against RSL. Last time we faced them, it was it was close. It was 2-2. We ended up getting a last-second heroics from Miguel Berry in that game. And then, yeah, obviously going into RSL, it's always been a struggle for the Galaxy team, and really it's just been a struggle to play them in general for anybody this season, right? Going into that game, they were 15 games unbeaten, which is insane to think about. And, the fact that we end up getting, breaking that is pretty crazy in itself. But, yeah, obviously this was a tough team. This was a team that was always going to, that right now is one of the elite teams this season, and is contending for the Supporters Shield and for MLS Cup. So yeah, obviously this is going to be a tough matchup in general. So yeah, to get a win obviously is huge. To get 3 wins in a row is bigger, and beating a team that was 15 games unbeaten is even just again insane. So But obviously, what were your thoughts about the game? How'd you feel about it? And obviously you were there, so what was your experience like too?
Yeah, obviously a great experience. It was extremely hot there. I brought back 3 points with me, but I also brought back a dry cough with me, which is unfortunate. That's why I'm muting myself a little bit sometimes. But yeah, overall for the game, it was definitely, yeah, very competitive for sure. Like we went into it knowing like it was going to be difficult because we just played 3 days ago. We have to travel. It was so hot there. It was obviously in altitude too, so the air just didn't feel great at all. And yeah, obviously we had like a heavily rotated lineup. Our entire starting midfield was out. Our left back was out. I mean, we had a ton of guys out. So just going into that game, I was like, even if we didn't win 3 games in a row, I don't know how mad I would have been. Like if we just got a point out of there, I probably would have been like, all right, fair enough. Like that would have been a good point. But yeah, we go in there, we keep it close, we stay compact, we stay structured. We're very good defensively. We make the game difficult. Obviously, Martin goes down and Raga goes down. That's two big losses, especially for Real Salt Lake, considering what Arango's done for them this year. So that changes the game for us a little bit. For them, it changes the way we defend them a little bit. And yeah, going into the second half, you thought maybe a point's on the table. I didn't know if we were going to score, honestly. It didn't look like we were really going to score. We were creating that much. But I knew at any given moment, it's like, hey, if one of the DP wingers step up, anything's possible. We did have a chance, though. We did have a chance. It was always going to be like that on the road. We were going to have one or two chances, and it was going to be a matter of if we took those chances or not. And one of those came in, pretty early in the second half. Painsil was through and on goal. He had a chance to try to score. Unfortunately, the keeper makes a save. That was kind of disappointing because you thought that was like maybe the one chance to possibly get a goal on the road, and we didn't take it, so it was like, oh well. But we still defend, we still stayed compact. Eventually, the game was close. We made a couple changes. Obviously, Neil had to come on. Delgado came on at halftime, so we got some more of our regulars back into the team. And yeah, like I don't know, like I was very just anxious about it. I'm like, any moment Salt Lake could score, maybe we could keep a clean sheet again. I don't know what's gonna happen, but once Peck and Joveljic, had a combination play, which is something they've been growing on the past couple weeks. I mean, it was a great goal for sure, definitely on the road. Like, there was a lot of Galaxy fans there too. I know a lot of people were saying like they heard him on TV. The section was pretty full. I mean, it was very loud once we scored for sure. Definitely a lot of excitement around there. A lot of anticipation too to see if we would hold on. Just like when we got the comeback win in Kansas City, there was a lot of that anticipation if we'd hold on. It was pretty much the same here, right? And yeah, I mean, we stayed compact. We defend really well. It goes back to the New York game, just playing smart, picking and choosing your moments to go forward and attack. And that's what we did perfectly. The reality is we had two chances on the road. One DP winger converted, the other one didn't. And that made the difference in the game. And yeah, obviously a massive 3 points. Real Salt Lake unbeaten in 15 games to go in there after just playing 3 days ago. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, right? Tied for first in the Western Conference right now. Obviously, we got the El Tráfico in a few weeks, which is going to be a massive game too to possibly try to go even further up the table. But yeah, massive win for sure. We were critical after the Chicago game, and I think, you have to equally be as fair now and be as, I guess, giving as much praise out as you gave criticism there, because that's how big of a win it really was.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this was massive, because I think we even said it last week. We were said like, well, if we get a tie in RSL, I think that'd be pretty good for the Galaxy. That'd be big to get 4 out of 6 points this week, right? So yeah, I mean, obviously I didn't really expect to win in this one, but yeah, I mean, obviously it was going to be tough. This was a game where, looking at the game, like obviously, like you mentioned, like there was a lot of Galaxy fans there. I believe it was like a sold out crowd for ourselves. Well, so it was a very intimate, like a very intense atmosphere in a sense, right? Because of and obviously where they're at in the standings as well, first and third. So it was obviously like kind of a bit of an intense, and and like you mentioned, you were anxious about about some points in the game, right? Because it was that close. And I think, yeah, I mean, obviously for this game, I think, yeah, maybe we didn't have as many chances. Again, we had of course, obviously we had that one paint still chance, which was, a bummer. I felt like that was going to be a goal, and that was a good save by McMath, but also a little bit, paint still could have done better as well. But yeah, I mean, obviously it was a grind for both teams. We lost, each team lost a player in that game. Obviously they lost Chicho Arango, which was probably, bigger than, us losing Cáceres, because we had Jalen Neal coming off the bench, which again was again, I think that just changed the complexity of the game. And it was a grind, and I think, yeah, at some point it was going to be like, yeah, I think this is going to be a 0-0 tie. I think both teams at that point would have taken the tie, but if one team had a chance to go and score and had the opportunity, like whoever had that chance first or scored first, I think was, that was going to be the deal maker, and that happened to be us with Gabriel Peck, scoring that goal in the, I believe it was like what, around the 70th minute, around there, somewhere within that time frame. So, obviously, like, again, I think it was just it was a grind. It was, the matter of who was gonna, convert on that one chance, and I think the Galaxy, they had that one chance in the end, and they ended up stealing the 3 points. And for us, we're happy about it. We get 3 wins in a row, and I think if you're an RSL fan, or just in general on that RSL side, you're probably really disappointed on of how that game went in the end, and ultimately beating their streak and ultimately losing at home that day. But yeah, obviously it was a grind, but hey, you're not complaining, right? I don't think anybody's complaining, and especially Greg Vanney is not complaining with getting that 3 wins in a row. So obviously it was a great game. I mean, it was a great result at the end of the day, and I think that's just going to build this team even more, going into the season.
I mean, yeah, ever since the international break, though, Jovic and Peck really do have a connection there, because we've seen them combine for a lot of goals now recently.
Yeah, I mean, obviously their connection's been, growing, and I think that's, obviously you need that, you need a connection with your winger and your striker, and obviously, those two, they've been having great seasons at the individuals, but whenever they combine within these type of plays, I think that's just ultimately gonna, help them, with this team. For those two to combine in those type of situations, like, obviously that's what you're going to need from your striker and your winger, and if you don't have those if you don't combine for those types of plays, you're not going to win games like how we did this week, right? So obviously, them connecting is just going to go big for them and for for the season, and just in general for the team, right? So it's going to be it's good that they're combining. It was interesting also how we took approach into the game, because we had Mark Delgado out. Of course, Gassady started instead of Neil. There were some, Tucker Lepley had his first start, as a Galaxy player. So obviously the approach of the game was very interesting on how we had some of our, maybe I guess you could say some of our key players on the bench. What were your thoughts about that when you saw the lineup, going into that? Like, for me, I kind of understood. It's like, all right, you get your best players in the second half if it's still close. But like, obviously it was still interesting that you go with those type of players, from the start. Like, how'd you feel about that when you, saw the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind it at all, honestly. I was all right with the lineup. I will say again, though, like, if Tucker Lepley is getting his first start, why is Garces not getting his first start, right? Like, a lot of guys have gotten their first starts. And there's Garces, we haven't even seen him play a minute yet, but I've just accepted at this point that he's probably not going to be much of a part of our team this year if he hasn't, even gotten a minute already. But overall for the lineup, I was all right with it. Like, I thought, giving Neil a little bit of a break in altitude after he played the full week was fair. I thought, apparently Aude was a little bit under the weather going into this game, so putting Nelson in there, especially in altitude in the first half, I think that was a really good decision in that heat too. That was a good decision by Vanney. Yeah, obviously Delgado on the bench, he played a lot, did a lot on Wednesday, so it was fair to, bench him. I think it was all reasonable for sure. I agree with you. I think the changes made a lot of sense.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously, maybe, I don't know. I didn't see much of it, but maybe there were some people who were like, oh, like, why are we starting like this with taking some of these players out? But I think it was the smart decision with the scenarios that we were in. So I understood what Vandy was definitely, was trying to go with when it came to the starting lineup. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Tucker Lepley starting was very interesting because obviously, we got to see, a bit of him, these past, I guess, few games because he's been called up. But, this was one where he got a start, and I think that was interesting. Obviously, when we were in preseason, we were talking about Tucker saying like, hey, maybe this guy could be a pretty big role into the first team maybe at some point when he got drafted and, what he did in college and things like that. So I think it was interesting that we got to see more of Tucker Lepley. Obviously, I don't think this means he's going to be a big part of the team, but obviously it's still good to see, him getting some minutes with the first team. And as well, I think I mentioned last week, it's kind of interesting how, I guess, the way the team is, putting in some of these younger players, it's almost like we're trying to see what we have in our system, what we have in terms of even a bit of depth, right? When it comes to these type of players. So I think it was interesting, giving a player like Tucker Lepley, a start, and especially with a big game like this one, like that was very interesting to see nonetheless. But anyways, any other final thoughts you want to talk about the game before we get into some players?
Yeah, obviously an incredible result, right? It was definitely a grand game, like you said. It was very back and forth. It was always going to be very close, going to come down to one or two moments, whoever took their chances. And ultimately, Gabriel Peck, our DP player, is the one who took those chances, and he's been, honestly, one of our best players the last 2 months. You could argue he's even been our best player if you want to go that far. But yeah, Gabriel Peck over the last couple of months has really been just that guy for the Galaxy pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, definitely he's been stepping it up. And again, like I mentioned last week in our other episode, it was just a matter of him just, I mean, although he didn't really necessarily take control of these games or anything like that, obviously he still came up in probably one of the biggest moments of the week and of this game, right? So I think that's another thing you
Of the
have to,
season.
yeah, and of the season, really. So it's like you have to add that to Gabriel Peck. And, again, some people may have had, maybe not questioning his production or anything like that, but obviously people were saying, like, well, if we're paying this guy this so much money, like, when is he going to come up big and come up clutch? And he's definitely has, not only just this week, but like you mentioned, the past, month or two. So definitely for sure, Gabriel Peck has been stepping up and at the right time too. Like, let's not forget about that. Like, it's at the right time. Like, it's, in the middle of the season where we have the dog days of summer, where we have so many crucial games, coming up. So I think for Gabriel Peck to finally start getting his groove on it's big. It's massive for him for sure. And I think, him getting that goal is, again, getting us the 3 points is great as well. Anyways, let's move on into the players for the RSL game, which, of course, let's start off with the defense. You had John McCarthy at goal. You had Mickey Yamane as your right back, Maya Yoshida as one of your center backs. Martin Cáceres gets the start, for as the other center back. And then for your left back, you actually had John Nelson starting instead of Julian Aude. So there was some changes into the defense in this game. Once again, another clean sheet for the defense, even without some players that we normally have in there. But how do you feel about the defense in that game? What were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, I definitely felt very good about the defense. I think both the changes made sense, bringing in John Nelson for Julian Aude, who apparently was feeling a little bit under the weather, like I mentioned earlier, so that was fair. And bringing in Cáceres for Jalen Neal, that was also fair considering Jalen Neal had a 2-game week. He's a young player going to altitude, so that was probably a fair change to make. Yeah, I'll start with John Nelson. Like, I'm going to say it, John Nelson is significantly better than Raheem Edwards. I'm ready to come to that conclusion. I think he's a lot better. Obviously, and I've never been much of a Raheem Edwards guy. You've always kind of liked him a little more than I have. But yeah, I was very happy with John Nelson. I think he did a really good job. Yoshida is pretty much the Galaxy version of Iron Man. This guy has not sat out a single second of the season so far. He's played every minute of every game, which for an old player is just remarkable, honestly, how he's been able to play so much. Talk about Delgado, never getting tired or never having to need a break. I mean, Yoshida, is just a defender's version of that, right? He's been on the field all season, did a great job again. Jalen Neal, when he came on, did a really good job. He's been playing very well since he came back from injury. Again, another player that I was probably wrong on earlier in the season. I said this year might not be a big year for Jalen Neal. It's more of a recovery year, him coming back into form, trying to find his footing again. Well, apparently Jalen Neal has found his footing already, and he's come back very strong. He's come back ready to play. And it looks like for the rest of the year, if Jalen Neal's available, like I said, I think, he's going to be our starting center back for the rest of the year. And Yamai did a very good job as well. I think he had a very solid game. McCarthy made the saves he needed to make. He did a pretty good job. So yeah, overall for the defense again, back-to-back clean sheets. What was actually funny is in the post-game press conference, they actually told Yoshida this is the first time since March 2022 the Galaxy kept back-to-back clean sheets. And even he laughed at that because of how bad that was, which tells you a lot, like how we were before Will Kuntz came in, made a lot of signings, made a lot of new additions. But yeah, still back-to-back clean sheets. We played really well. Definitely some good things to see from there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the defense just, obviously we got to see some changes. And, like you mentioned about Johnny Nelson, like obviously, I think Raheem Edwards, I wasn't necessarily too high on him, but obviously, I think just because of the fact that he was, sort of a fan favorite, likable person, like you wanted to see, and Raheem had his moments, but obviously John Nelson is a guy who's an actual true left back, a guy who has had experience in the league, and obviously he was like when we got him, we said this is going to be a good depth piece whenever Julian Aude needs time off or whatever the case may be, like this week, or they want to put him in the second half or anything like that. And I think John Nelson has been a guy who obviously hasn't had much playing time, but whenever he has had playing time, I don't think he's, necessarily been bad or anything like that. So obviously him starting was interesting, but obviously he played solid and, did the right things, made it simple as well. Obviously when it came to your center backs, Cáceres, unfortunate that, he had to come out of the game. But obviously, for him, still though him starting, I guess, adds that experience. Sometimes you need experience in these sort type of games, but, unfortunately he had to, come off early, but also he wanted to stay on, but they just weren't going to let him. He was standing up, put the bandage on him. It's hey, I'm ready to go, but it's nah, we're going to take you out. So you got to give him a little bit of respect for that, in the sense that he wanted to stay on the field, but I think it was wise that he came off. And yeah, obviously Yoshida just, like you said, he's an Iron Man. And, at this point, people are saying even us, we were when are we going to give this guy rest? When is he going to, get rest? But at this point, if he's fine to go, what's the point of giving him rest? You know what I mean? If he's that fine at this point in the season, and, it's very impressive that he's doing it at the age he's doing it in. And then, yeah, obviously Yamane still played very well, still solid. And, McCarthy made the saves he needed to save, or he needed to do. So, that was good as well. And then obviously Neil coming on for most of the game, he played well. Even though that wasn't necessarily what they were going to do with him, he still, stepped up in a sense and, played most of that game. So you got to give him his flowers to being, thrown into that situation when it wasn't necessarily planned.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think it was kind of funny in the post-game press conference when Maya Yoshida laughed at the reporter when he said, "This is our first time keeping 2 clean sheets since early March 2022. Did you catch that, or did you find it funny at all, now that you heard that?
I was going to say, I actually did not catch that interview, but I think, it is pretty funny, but also I think that shows not only just where we were as a team, but I think it also shows you the standards of Maya Yoshida, right? It's wow, we really, this is it's been that long, since we've had a clean, back-to-back clean sheets. I think in his mind, he's saying, we should be striving for that more often, that shouldn't, it's not necessarily just because obviously he came in last year. He wasn't necessarily here for 2022 or anything before that. So it's for him, I think that shows you just the mindset of Yoshida, right? And the standards that he wants to, put up for the team. And I think that's why he's, he's the captain of this team, right? It's not only just the experience, it's the matter of what the mindset and the standards he wants to set up for this team. And then, obviously he cares about the team. He cares about being here. And, as a professional, though, that's what you really want from a player. And yeah, I think it really shows more of the standards of Yoshida. It's hey, yeah, it's fun. It's been that long, but at the same time, we should be striving more than just, we should be striving for this more. It's not just, it can't be a every 2-year type of deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. So obviously, for him, it's very interesting. Yeah, I think it just shows more about him. But anyways, do you have anything else about the defense before we move on?
Yeah, they played very solid, back-to-back clean sheets. That's definitely a really good thing. And yeah, hopefully you continue to build off that.
Yeah, hopefully we do continue that. And again, great that we got back-to-back clean sheets and after so long, actually. So that's pretty interesting. But let's talk about the midfield. The midfield was a bit different from the last game as well. You had Edwin Torrio, you had Diego Fagundes in this one, and like I mentioned before, you had Tucker Lepley starting, getting his first MLS start of his career. So how'd you feel about the midfield? What were your thoughts about it? And what were your thoughts about it?
Yeah, the midfield, I think, did a pretty good job. Again, defensively, I think they were very well structured. Torrio had an outstanding game that game. That was definitely his best game he played in a long time, which I think a lot of people were talking about. Tucker Lepley did what you want him to do for his debut. He just kept it simple, played a pretty good game. Wasn't getting forward as much as you would like from a player that's more attacking minded, but still I think did the simple things right, which for a debut player, that's all you can really ask for. And I think Diego Fagundes had a good game again, really making all the simple plays. Again, without Ricky, I think that's just kind of what we were looking for in the midfield. Keep it simple and, stick to our principles, and that's exactly what we did. So if guys are doing their job in the midfield and really, doing what the coach wants out of them to make the team successful, you got to give them credit, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, obviously it's just sort of like the kind of like the NYC game, right? It was just a matter of, being, again, simple, being calm and collective and not doing anything to really affect your team. And I think that, the midfield did that same thing. They didn't have as many, they didn't really do any much, they didn't have as many turnovers or anything like that, or didn't really make any turnovers, didn't make any, mistakes. So I think that's also another thing as well, because, we've seen before, and even with like Ricky, that we've, have a tendency to turn over the ball or, doing, mistakes, right? And I think, for them, I think this midfield right now, they stepped up in a sense of, trying to keep it simple, just doing your job, and again, that's all you need from a player, is just to do your job and do everything right. Don't do anything that's going to affect the team or hurt the team. So yeah, in terms of those players, they played they played as a unit, they played solid. And and in terms of Tucker Lively, like I mentioned before, it's good to have him get his debut and seeing what he has to offer. And who knows, maybe this is the first of many, but we'll see how his career progresses. But definitely for sure, the midfield played solid and did what they needed to do. So any other points you want to talk about the midfield before we move on?
No, I think that'll pretty much do it.
All right, then. Let's talk about the offense now. Offense, same as last game. You had Peck, you had Joveljic, and you had Paintsville in this game. Like we mentioned before, Gabriel Peck had a goal in this game. Paintsville almost had one, had a chance, but necessarily didn't. He didn't convert on that one. So offense, of course, we got one goal out of one of our players, but how'd you feel about the offense as a whole? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, offensively, it was a relatively quiet night, but that's kind of what we expected right on the road after playing 3 days ago. If we were ever going to win this game, which we knew it was going to be a very tough task, it was going to come down to one or two moments. And the reality was we had 2 moments to score, and then one of them we converted on, the other one we didn't. Obviously, the one we didn't was the Joseph Paintsville chance, but the one we did was the Gabriel Peck chance. And those are the moments you're going to look at, right? I mean, Joveljic had a very quiet game in general, didn't really do much, but then had a give and go with Gabriel Peck to set up the game-winning goal. That was great. I think Gabriel Peck had a very good game. He was very energetic all night, really tried to make a lot happen, and then scored the game-winning goal, which is what everybody's going to remember. Probably one of our biggest goals all season, honestly, when you were playing a team on a 15-game unbeaten streak in their home. You're always going to remember that goal the rest of the season, right? And could make a big difference in the long term, too. So, yeah, Gabriel Peck, made the difference, won the Galaxy the game. And I must say, too, with Gabriel Peck, that touch he had to get through 2 defenders off the Joveljic give and go, I mean, that was just very impressive. The finish was very impressive, too, on his left foot. So, yeah, ultimately, when it comes to your DPs, they were difference makers that day, and that's all you can ask for, really.
Yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, it just comes down to the 1 or 2 moments to win you a game, and sometimes you just need a player to step up in those moments. And we've mentioned before Gabriel Peck being that guy who has stepped up within the last month or so, and it was no different in this game where he just had the chance, had the opportunity, scored the goal, and ended up stealing those 3 points away. And again, that's a very tough task, that we completed that day, right? It's like it was going to be a game where it's just, it was going to be close. It was going to be a game where maybe you weren't necessarily going to get the win, but if you could get the tie, you were going to be happy about it. But no, I mean, obviously Gabriel Peck came in the right moment. And like I mentioned earlier, it was going to come down to, whoever was going to score first was probably going to take that game. And Gabriel Peck happened to be the guy who scored. And, that kind of sets RSL to a mode where they have to come back, and also in a game where they really necessarily, weren't really converting on their opportunities either. So it's like, that was going to make it even more difficult for them. So, shout out to Gabriel Peck for getting that goal, and just in general, the improvement he's just been making this season has been great. And, I mean, in terms of the rest of the offense, of course, Paintsville, wish he could have converted that goal, but, unfortunate that he didn't. And, yeah, I mean, quiet night, like you mentioned, but also, again, we made the most out of the, the couple of opportunities that we have, and I think that's the more important part about the offense, is that we converted, right?
Yeah, definitely a very clinical week for sure. Obviously, without Ricky, who's our playmaker, we didn't really get as many opportunities to really find guys in as much space, but, we still created a good amount of chances, and we converted well on a lot of them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, it's just one of those 1 or 2 moments that you need to you need to convert, and we definitely did it in this game. Any other thoughts about the offense before we move on?
No, that'll do it.
All right, for sure. anything, obviously, like we mentioned before, Greg Vanney getting his third win in a row. So how'd you feel about the way, I mean, I guess we sort of talked about it with the way he started, but, just in general, how'd you feel like he managed the game in general? Any of the subs that I guess, stood out to you, but how'd you feel about Greg Vanney, I guess the way he managed this game? Because normally in these sort of situations, and especially when you saw in the Chicago game, definitely doesn't have the best, doesn't manage the game as well when it comes to this sort of situation. But he had definitely got over the hump. But how'd you feel about the way he managed the game?
Honestly, I think he did really well. Like we said in the starting lineup, I think the changes made a lot of sense. Bringing on those guys made a lot of sense. Eventually, getting Auda into the game, getting Neal into the game once Caceres couldn't go, getting Delgado into the game eventually, subbing on Miguel Berry late into the game. I think those made a lot of sense. I think the Delgado change was massive. I think when he came out, he had a really big impact on the match, and that was really good. He was built for a game in altitude like that, and that was good. And I think the Auda change was very impactful too. I think that was a smart change to make too for John Nelson. Maybe he would have gotten a little bit tired eventually, considering he hasn't played that much all season. So I think that change made a lot of sense too. And honestly, I think, when it comes to Greg Vanney and Cerrillo, we got to be honest to give him credit. Ever since the international break, they've done a really good job. Both of them have stepped up a lot and they've improved a lot. Obviously, after that Chicago game, I think both of us were very rightly very critical of them with the way they managed the game, the way they played, and kind of them being responsible for us dropping points. But maybe they used that 2-week break as motivation to reflect and get better, and you can tell they definitely have gotten better right now.
Yeah, definitely. Those two have definitely gotten better. And again, for Greg Vanney, just getting over this hump definitely has to feel great for him. And I know a lot of the players and the coaching staff probably were like, yeah, we didn't really care about that stuff or whatever. But in the reality is, it's like I'm pretty sure they definitely cared about that and wanted to, get that win for Greg, and for Greg to get that win is obviously great. And then like you mentioned, Cerrillo stepping up when we needed him to, and even before the break, he necessarily didn't step up, but now we've definitely seen him step up in these few games. So for him, it's definitely been great the way he's been playing. So you got to give him credit. You got to give, like you said, you got to give those two credit because of the way things happened before the break, but now they've definitely both stepped up in sort of they both definitely stepped up in a sort of way. But I was going to ask you though, because obviously with these two games, with the week that we've had, again 2 wins. 3 wins in a row, doing things like breaking RSL's unbeaten streak. I mean, what does this mean for us? Because obviously this is pretty massive, but does this give you a different perspective about the team and how we've performed this week? Obviously it's just 1 week, but still it was pretty massive week. But do you think this sort of changes anything for the team, or any other perspective about the team that you feel about them?
It would definitely give me more confidence in knockout games, definitely, right? Because we talked about if the Galaxy want to compete for trophies, you can't, go into a tournament not being able to win 3 games in a row, or else you're never going to win anything, right? So it should give you more confidence in that aspect. And yeah, definitely for the week too. Like, it was a really hard week. We even talked about it. New York was recently on a 5-game winning streak, so we knew that was going to be tough at home. RSL was unbeaten in their last 15 games. I mean, it kind of shows you like what we thought about this team, and it's good we kind of got together. It's like we have a talented group of players that are capable of winning any single match, and that we can definitely go far and compete with any team in the league. The players believe that. I think the fans of the season are trying to believe that. So it kind of gives me more of a confidence that, hey, maybe we can try to continue to go on a run. We can compete with anybody. We got over most of our mental hurdles this season, like the 1 goal thing when we conceded the first goal. Now the 3 wins in a row thing. What I would say is too is like maybe this is also a chance to maybe try to expand on the 3 wins in a row, right? Maybe try to make it 4 or 5 in a row. I mean, if you got that would be even massive too. Or even if you can't get that, like if you try to go into other games too, maybe you try to build a new sort of long-term streak and try to get over the 3 games in a row now, which was that was the main hurdle. So I think just overall it should give us a lot more confidence and should, give us a lot of belief in our ability as a team to go out there and compete with anybody.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's going to be a momentum builder for this team, and more than any of the other, I guess, momentum builders that we've had, I guess, during the season, right? Especially with these next, couple games that we have, because we have back-to-back rivalries, which again, we'll talk about San Jose, later in the preview. But obviously, yeah, it's pretty big. It's massive that we got this. I think, I think it is a step forward. And again, it's maybe not a massive step forward, But definitely, like we've mentioned before, needle movers, right? This definitely is a needle mover. This week and how we performed, and some of the things that we did just definitely made this team a little bit more confident. And I think not only just for the team, but as fans, we're probably a little bit more confident about them, because now everybody's saying like, hey, like we can fucking go on and win everybody, right? So, and I think that's what a lot of people kind of feel like, and we're starting to feel that more. I don't know if this necessarily makes us, into the elite tier like we've mentioned before, with the Galaxy, but at the same time, it kind of it helps them to move into that, spot, right? Into being like an elite team or being called a contender. So I think this definitely helps them in that aspect. But still though, I think they can build off of it. They can definitely, and I think another thing as well is like they can definitely play better, like, and knocking them. I'm just saying like the potential of this team is still there. Like they can still be better than what we think they are. And yeah, obviously it's a big week, and definitely for sure it'll help the team, build off momentum. And I think that's going to, just ultimately just keep the boys hungry. You know what I mean? Keep them hungry and keep them striving for more, and setting a new standard and getting back to a standard that we haven't had. So, I think this week is definitely a needle mover for this team.
Yeah, it's very fair.
Yeah. But anyways, any other final thoughts you want to say about RSL before we move on?
Yeah, it's a good thing the Galaxy got the 3 points for me, right? Because it was roasting out there. It was so hot. So I'm very glad that I at least got to take 3 points back with me after being in that heat for a while.
Yeah, I know, right? That would have been terrible to lose, and being in that heat the whole fucking time like that. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're.
Oh yeah.
At this point it was worth it, right? It was worth it being in there now that we got the win. So, that it's definitely good for everybody, right? Good for everybody who supports the Galaxy. So yeah, definitely good week overall. Also, another thing you forgot to mention was also when Gabriel Peck scored, you definitely did some things that made it onto the broadcast and highlights, which is pretty funny. If you want to share a little bit about that, I guess the celebration that you did when Gabriel Peck scored.
I mean, yeah, I had the jersey, so it was perfect timing, right? I took the jersey off and I held it up like it was messy for the camera to see. Unfortunately, I didn't get it as straight as I possibly wanted to, but still, I think it was a pretty cool celebration.
Yeah, I mean, and we were talking about this earlier. Like, it was pretty funny seeing that. Like, when I was rewatching the highlights, I was like, "Oh, there's Alex! Like, he's holding up the shirt," and like, yeah, it was pretty funny. And for those who haven't seen it, obviously, go into the highlights. You can see him right there holding up that Gabriel Peck shirt. But yeah, obviously, seems like you had a good time even in that heat, and obviously the time was even better with the win. So you can't be complaining about that. But anyways, yeah, that was RSL. That was also New York with those recaps. So, a tough week. We end up getting 6 out of 6 points. A great week for the boys. And another tough week is coming this week with San Jose. But before we get into San Jose, let's talk a little bit about some Galaxy news and things like that. First, let's talk briefly about this one, because this happened right after we stopped recording last week, which was something that was, when we stopped recording, I remember you even said, like, don't look at your phone, don't look at it, it's not worth it. But obviously there was one little thing that was brought up last week, which was, I guess the Galaxy are not actively looking for a backup striker, which is, something that a lot of people are saying, like, hey, we definitely need a backup striker. Miguel Berry necessarily hasn't been all there this season in those moments, and we definitely need another backup striker behind Joveljic. But obviously that came out saying they're not actively looking for one, which is interesting, because that means, what are we going to do for the summer window? What does that mean for the, what we're looking for? But what are your thoughts about that? About that piece of news that happened last week after we recorded?
Yeah, obviously I trust Will Kuntz. I'm not about to sit here and say, like, hey, what is this guy doing? Does he even know what he's doing right here? Obviously with the way he's transformed the Galaxy. But when I look at that, if there's any truth to that, which considering it's coming from corner of the Galaxy, there's probably a good chance that is true. I just don't think that's the move, honestly. Like, I still think you need another guy in there. Like even if it's just a trade in the league or a free agent, like I still think you need someone better than Miguel Berry. Like think about it, if Jovic goes down, do you really want Miguel Berry being your starting striker? I mean, probably not at all, right? And yeah, you still have the U22 DP spot. You still have a little bit of salary cap space from other guys you let go. I still think there's room to bring in a striker. Some people were saying we're not going to bring in a striker because we're trying to get Lewandowski in the summertime next year, which I mean, fair enough, I guess, but still, I think you need somebody, maybe just this year, even if it's a loan somebody. I don't think you should just hold out till next year. I don't think that's a very good decision. But I mean, apparently the Galaxy are trying to target a midfielder with that U22 DP spot, with Aguirre leaving, and who's the backup for Mark Delgado? So I think that is a fair question too. If you want to get a midfielder, obviously we're a team that plays with a lot of energy, that requires a lot of running, a lot of movement. So that's not a bad idea, but. Still, the idea of Miguel Berry being our backup striker if Jovic goes down, the starting striker is like, I just can't get myself on board with that, honestly. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll still get somebody, but apparently more of a priority is a midfielder right now, which I agree. We need a midfielder. That's not a bad idea, but I also think we do need a backup striker.
Yeah, obviously, and like you said, like we can't be questioning Kuntz now, right? Because obviously what he's been doing with the Galaxy has been nothing but exceptional for the team and for the organization. But yeah, I mean, obviously, again, you're not. The midfield idea is not a bad idea. I think you do need to invest in the midfielder, and like you mentioned, as a backup for Delgado or whatever the case may be. Obviously, there's still the Marco Royce rumor, and that's still been pretty quiet. Who knows if that's going to happen or not? Anything, but still, regardless, it's like you're gonna. I think getting a midfielder is not a bad idea, but at the same time, you'd need somebody in that second striker role because, like you mentioned, if Jovic goes down, which hopefully that's not the case, but if he does go down, are you really confident with Miguel Berry being your starter? And the reality is no. And even if Dejan Jovic is out and he's your starter, who's going to back up Miguel Berry? So then that's another question in that either. So it's like. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just maybe, again, not questioning Kuntz. I think at this point, we shouldn't question him, but at the same time, I think this, not getting a second striker is a little bit of a questionable call. But still, though, like, again, Will Kuntz knows what he's doing. If he feels like that's not a need, it's not a need. But I think for us Galaxy fans and everybody who's going to keep watching those games, they're going to feel like it's a need. So I think, and I think it's a need to get a second striker. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's interesting to see what they do in those summer transfer windows, but I think still it's very interesting that they're not going to go for a second striker. I thought that would have been a priority this summer, but hey, who knows? I mean, and also things can change as well. Maybe they do go for one. We just don't know. But still, though, like as of right now, if they're not actively looking for one, I think that's a bit of a disappointment to say the least.
Just feels like this Galaxy roster right now is built off energy and just like having players around who can run, defend, create space. It feels like we're not really a team that really targets goal scorers. Like I think that's probably Wilkins's vision for the Galaxy right now because even in the winter he had a chance to get a DP striker. Obviously elected not to. We have a chance to get a striker in the summertime. It looks like they're trying to get a midfielder right now who can maybe bring more energy, a U22 DP midfielder. Seems like to be the direction they're going. I've also heard wingers a possibility. But I think midfield is probably more of a possibility, more likely because like who's the backup to Delgado? Or at least for the wingers you have Fagundes and Perez there once he's healthy. So I don't know, this Galaxy roster in general has kind of been more of like, we need more creation, we need more energy rather than just like pure goal scoring because maybe the goal scoring will come as a result of that playmaking and energy if we bring it in. I guess that's sort of the idea they're having, which it's worked for Jovic, but I still don't think Miguel Berry has that quality to even be on the field that often.
Yeah, and I agree with you because, like you mentioned, it's like, yeah, maybe we are building more off of being a team that creates energy, creates things, and resulting in the Jovic, scoring, which it has worked this season, right? So I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but again, it's like it's just a matter of if he's not on the field, if he gets injured again, or whatever the case may be. It's just like you're not confident with Miguel Berry being your starter, and again, it's just like. Again, Miguel Berry as a backup and for what we're asking him this season, I guess it's like, he's done okay, but at the same time, if you're a striker, you got to score goals, and he hasn't really done that this season. He's done it twice, which good for him. He's done it twice, but at the same time, in those moments, we still got to make sure he comes in, when we do need him and come in clutch moments, I guess. And like you mentioned, I don't think he has the capability of being that guy to come in those type of moments. So I guess that's more of the situation with Miguel Berry, is that he just needs to come up in those moments, and he seemingly hasn't done it as often this season, for sure.
I mean, it's a great thing Jovic has had a bounce back season this year, because if he had the season he had last year, that would definitely be a really big problem for sure.
Yeah, I mean, then we would definitely be actively looking for a striker, right? If Jovic wasn't having the season that he's having right now. So definitely, I guess, like, in a sense, it's like, again, Will Kuntz knows what this team needs. If he believes that we don't need a striker, then all right, then that's going to be the case. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're glad right now Jovic is performing the way he's performing, right? Or else I think definitely we would be looking for, a striker in this summer window. But hey, you know what? That's good for Jovic that he's performing well. So that's, maybe we don't necessarily need to have one. But although I think we do need one, to have a backup. But hey, you know what? Jovic is performing, so maybe Kuntz thinks that we don't need one. So it is what it is. Yeah, any other thoughts about that before we move on?
Yeah, Jovic has honestly played like a fourth DP this year, which has been very good for the Galaxy. His production has been at that level.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 10 goals so far this season, halfway through the season. 11 goals, actually. Yeah, you're right. 11 goals halfway through the season, or a little more than halfway through the season now. So it's like, yeah, he's playing at a DP level in a sense. Even though he's not a DP. So I think that's another thing that helps this Galaxy team as well, and I think he's going to keep scoring goals, and that's something that we just need from Dejan, right? It's to score goals. I know a lot of people still kind of give him some stuff. It's like, oh, he just does tap-ins or whatever the case may be. It's like, hey, I don't care if it's a tap-in or if it's a screamer outside the box. If you're scoring goals as a number 9, that's all we can ask for, right? It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Moneyball, when they're, it's a baseball movie, but it's like, point is, there was a scene where it's like they're talking about, it's like, hey, it's like, this guy doesn't hit well. It's like, yeah, but he gets on base. It's like, it's the same thing with Dejan. It's like, sure, he's not scoring the flashiest of goals, but he's scoring goals. So it's like, at the end of the day, you can't complain about that, right? Especially when he wasn't scoring last year. So, yeah, obviously, big turnaround for Dejan. And again, although I feel like we need another striker, hey, you know what? He's doing well this season, so you can't be complaining about that. But anyways, yeah, that was a little bit of some rumors that happened before, that happened last week. Let's talk about a little bit about Ventura County and the Academy. But first, let's talk about Ventura County, because I guess, just to give a little update on them. Ventura County, you said they had lost 3-2 last week, or this past week, against Vancouver. I didn't get to watch the game. I don't know if you did. Obviously, you were, traveling from Utah, but did you get to manage to see the Ventura County game?
I did watch it, yep.
Yeah. How'd you feel about it, even though we lost?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of unfortunate for Ventura County right now, because they had such a great start, great middle part of the season, but like they're losing a lot of guys right now. Obviously, Fernandez gets sold to Australia, Gino Vivi gets loaned out to Costa Rica, Ruben Ramos with the MLS Next team, and he's been one of their best players. Johnny Perez is injured right now, and he was with the Galaxy. Tucker Lively was with the Galaxy. So that's 5 main stars for them just completely off the team right now. And obviously, if you take 5 main stars off a team, obviously the level's going to decrease a lot, and that's kind of what you're seeing with them. They still played pretty well. They kept it close. It was a competitive game. But you can tell when they're missing all those guys, like the quality definitely goes down with that team.
Yeah, definitely a lot of movement in Ventura County right now when you mention all those guys, right? So it's like, whether it's injury or them moving to different teams or playing with the first team, it's like, yeah, it's definitely been, it's going to show in your team if those starters aren't going to be there. But hey, like you said, they kept it close, and they, even though they lost, they still kept it close. They still showed a fight, right? So I guess that's the best thing you can ask for, even with those players out, right? So, obviously Ventura County still in a good spot in MLS Next Pro. So, one loss isn't going to necessarily affect them completely, but still though, hopefully they get a bounce back, in their next game. Now, let's talk about the Academy, because there was some big things with the Academy this week. Obviously, we had the U15 and the U17s being the MLS Next finals or championships. The U15 unfortunately lost against the Chicago Fire, but the U17 become back-to-back champions in the MLS Next championship. So big weekend for the Academy. Big weekend for the U17s becoming back-to-back champions. Obviously massive for the organization as a whole. I did not get a chance to watch those games either. I don't know if you did, but obviously, what are your thoughts about, with the way the academy showed out this weekend, and just give me your thoughts about, their success this weekend.
Yeah, I did watch both games, and actually the LA Galaxy U15 and U17 makes history for the first ever MLS Next program to be in the final in the same year, so that's very good. We made history right there having two youth programs in the final. Yeah, obviously the U15s lost. They deserved to lose. Unfortunately, Chicago was the better team. They scored first. They got a 1-0 lead, but then Chicago just grew into the game. They were the better team than they were. They won 3-1. I mean, it kind of is what it is. They still put in a good performance. They still made us proud, but they were not the better team on the day. And obviously the U17 LA Galaxy team is definitely a very good team. One of the best MLS Next teams ever, honestly. Going back-to-back titles just like the first team LA Galaxy team did back in 2011, 2012, which obviously makes us very proud. We can say our young team and our senior team both won back-to-back titles. They did really well. They have so many talented players. Ruben Ramos Jr. is definitely a guy to watch for the Galaxy. He scored a hat-trick in the final with Greg Vanney attendance. Talk about a performance that shows like I'm him, scoring a hat-trick in a final with the head coach of the first team in attendance. It doesn't get much better than that, right? That was a very good performance. They also have Owen Pratt, who's a U.S. national team goalkeeper. He did very good in penalties in the previous round against Philadelphia to get him to the final. I think they also played penalties versus San Jose. So they had a very difficult path to repeat as champions. They had played a lot of penalty shootouts. They did really good. And obviously, the headline is Ruben Ramos scoring a hat-trick in the final. And I think Ruben Ramos has a lot to take to be a really good striker in this LA Galaxy team, too. He has a lot of characteristics that make him a really good striker. He's very strong. He's quick. He has good movements. He's good in the air. And obviously, scoring a hat-trick in the final in front of Greg Vanney is only going to do a lot for him. He's made his debut with the Galaxy for a short period of time against Kansas City, I think. So, yeah, it's on the up for him. I think he's 17 years old, too. So he's one to watch, definitely. I think he has a lot of qualities that can make him a really good striker, not only with Ventura County, but also with the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, obviously, Ruben Ramos is definitely proving himself in the organization, even if it's at the youth level, right? So, yeah, I mean, obviously, that's going to be someone that the Galaxy are very much well going to develop, and hopefully, at some point get some. Well, obviously, he did get some minutes with the first team not too long ago, but obviously some important minutes with the first team, right? So, his development, I think, Will Kuntz or Greg Vanney is just going to, they're going to want to see the development in him, and they're going to want to develop him to be a great MLS player and a great Galaxy player, right? So, obviously for him doing a hat-trick is insane, and like you mentioned, in front of Greg Vanney, which is a little bit of an I am him moment, so that's pretty awesome from him. And just in general for the organization, obviously back-to-back champions for the U17. Obviously, unfortunately, although the U15 didn't win, they still made it to the final. Like, that's still a pretty good achievement in itself. And this brings me back to last year, because obviously, I had mentioned it before, I think last year, and I mentioned it even when they had won this year. I posted on my story, and I think it was an article about ranking MLS academies or something like that. And I forgot who wrote it. I think it was someone from MLS or somebody who covers MLS. And I remember somebody saying that, them winning the title last year was almost saying like it was a fluke, almost saying like it wasn't important. This doesn't mean anything for the Galaxy Academy. And then now they're back-to-back champions. So what does that make about them now, right? So I want to see what they think about the academy now, and I want to see what they got riding for them. Obviously, there's still great academies out there. It's not to take away from other academies. Like, obviously, there's still the FC Dallases and the Philadelphias who are still great academy teams, but. And this goes back to what we said with Will Kuntz and how the direction of the team as an organization as a whole. And it starts with the academies. It starts with the youth players. And if they win titles in the youth level, that's going to ultimately help them in Ventura County and maybe even to the point in the first team, right? So I definitely think this is a big statement for the Galaxy and for the academy. It's definitely a little bit in a sense of a little bit of an FU to the person who said that this wasn't going to be anything for the Galaxy, or last year saying that it wasn't going to be anything for the academy or anything like that. And look where the direction it's going now. And like you mentioned, we made history with the U15 and U17 both making the finals in the same year. And again, it's a good direction for the team. It's a good direction for the organization as a whole. And yeah, you're proud of the youngsters. You're proud of the boys. And, hopefully maybe they go for a three-peat. You never know. But obviously they're folk right now. They got to celebrate this one. And whenever they go in next season, they're definitely going to try to go for that three-peat. So hopefully the boys right now are, living it up and, celebrating what they can, because this is going to be a big memory for them for the rest of their lives, and they deserve this moment for the rest of their lives, and everybody's proud of them.
Yeah, definitely. Back-to-back champions is very impressive, too. Like, it's definitely very hard to win again after you just won the year before. You talked about it's good for Ventura County, it's good for the LA Galaxy first team, which it absolutely is, but it's also good for bringing in players in, recruiting players from overseas, other countries, too. Like, I know for Ventura County, they brought in Aaron Bibu from an African academy, I think, and just things like that, too. Like, you can bring in, these high-level youth prospects into MLS Next, and you're a team that's winning trophies, getting the most out of players, sending players, like, even guys like Fernandes and Gino Vivi to other countries and top-level leagues. Like, this is good to bring in other guys at your youth levels, too. Like, you can bring in other players, attract other players, too, and that's going to be really good for the Galaxy organization as well.
Yeah, definitely. And also just in general, like, if you're, obviously the Galaxy is a, obviously in a sense a top club historically for the league, for MLS. And I think if you're going to be one of those top clubs, you also have to have a good academy, right? Like, obviously some of the best teams in the world have the best academies in the world, right? So it's like, some of the best teams in their respective leagues have the best academies in those leagues, right? So if the Galaxy is a top team, they got to have a top academy. And I think this one is sort of shifting into the fact that, hey, this team can compete. This academy is one of the best. Obviously, like I said, there's still the FC Dallases and the Philadelphias who consistently are one of the best academies in the league. But if the Galaxy can get into the mix of that, that's going to be, again, big for the organization. Like you said, bringing in recruits, and like I mentioned before last week, parents who want their kids to play club soccer, or if they want to, have their children play into the next level, they're going to want to say, hey, I want my child to play in the Galaxy Academy because that's one of the best academies out there, right? So that's also going to help, kids strive to go play for us or in general. So it's like, yeah, it's a big deal big deal for the club, big deal for the organization, and like I mentioned, also a big deal for the kids who won over the past weekend that get to cherish that for the rest of their lives.
I mean, yeah, you said entering the mix. I'd argue the Galaxy already in that mix of some of the best academies in the U.S. I mean, going back-to-back titles, that's very impressive, too. You also see what they did at the GA Cup, knocking off a team like River Plate. They also beat academies like Monterrey, which is very impressive, too, from Mexico. I mean, I really think this academy at the U15 level, they made it a final, too. I really think, like, ever since Greg Vanney has taken over the Galaxy, like, he's always been a guy that's been like, yeah, we want to improve the academy a lot. I would say, like, they've kind of entered that a mix of elite academies in the United States right now. I don't think they're still entering it. I think they've arrived right now and going back-to-back U17 MLS Next titles. I think that's kind of a statement like, yeah, we're here right now.
That's true. Like, I mean, yeah, but obviously I'm just saying, like, obviously, like, when people think of academies, they still think of those other academies, but yeah, I mean, obviously you got to give credit to Greg Vanney too, because obviously, right now, we've kind of mentioned Kuntz and the way he's, taking the organization into that direction, but also Greg Vanney, once he came in here, he was the guy who was like, hey, we got to make the academy better. We got to make more infrastructure too, right? So it hasn't necessarily started with Kuntz, which it started with Greg Vanney once he got here. So yeah, you also got to give him the credit. And like you said, he was in attendance for the final because, he wants to see what these kids are able to do. And Ruben Ramos definitely showed out saying like, hey, this is what I can offer you in the first team or whatever the case may be, right? So obviously Greg Vanney's been a guy who's been wanting the academy to be, elevate their level. So I think definitely he's been a big part of that too. So you got to give him his credit. But yeah, I mean, obviously you can say the Galaxy are in the top academies, but now it's just a matter of now being in there consistently, getting into those finals, winning more championships. And yeah, obviously right now with the way the Galaxy have been, Academy's been going, I think they have opportunities to win more titles. So hopefully they do. And also give credit to their U17 coach. I don't remember his name, But obviously he was also the same coach last year, so credit to him and the way he's been coaching the team as well. You got to give everybody credit, right? Give everybody their flowers. So yeah, obviously the academy's in a good direction, and maybe you might say that they're up there now. So it's just a matter of now being consistent in the academy level, and hopefully they get to play more and be play more to win more championships. So hopefully that's the case for next year and for years to come.
Another thing I would say too is Ruben Ramos. I look at him and I say that's a legit prospect for us. Like that's a prospect where I look at and say like, yeah, he really has a lot of potential. We signed him to a homegrown deal not too long ago, which is a massive deal. We can bring him on the first team. He's 17 years old. He's eligible for both national teams. He's played at the youth level for the United States and for Mexico. And I saw him for Ventura County too. He's been very good for Ventura County too. He's been one of their best attackers. He's been really good for them. And obviously scoring a hat trick in a final in front of the head coach. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. And I look at Ruben Ramos and I just see him like he's quick, he's strong, he's very smart, he has a lot of good ability as a striker that's going to be able to grow as he gets more experience. I mean, I look at a guy like that and I just say like, is that a guy we can possibly get to the first team eventually? And, maybe he's a really big piece for us. And eventually we send him off to Europe, like one of these big Academy Galaxy players right there. Like he's the guy I look at and say like, yeah, like he's a legit prospect. I think he has a lot of, tools to him that can make him a very good striker, not only in this league, but possibly, in other leagues too, if he decides to eventually move forward with that.
Yeah, definitely. And you need those type of prospects. And, we kind of mentioned with how the team has been moving some of these prospects or some of just the younger players in general. And yeah, if you look at Ruben Ramos, and like I mentioned, it's like with Greg Vanny in attendance, you're looking at that guy and you're looking at that kid and saying like, yeah, I want to develop this guy into being, I want to develop this kid into becoming into like a man, like wanting to be in the first team and into the, hopefully, be a great player for the first team eventually, hopefully. But it also takes part into Ruben, with Ruben, right? Like he has to, keep up the good work. He has to work hard. He has to, learn how to be a professional, because obviously that is a big part of, being a professional is learning how to act like one and be like one. So obviously he needs to, do that and be in the right mindset with the right people. So obviously it's going to take his part too, but, obviously right now with the talent, there's no doubt about it. He has the talent, he has the potential, but now it's just a matter of developing him. And like I said, from a kid to, into a man, I guess, in a sense. Right. So, yeah, obviously he has a big potential. He's going to be a big prospect, and hopefully, we'll see what his development is and what he can offer, because, I don't think the Galaxy are not going to give him an opportunity. They're definitely going to give him that opportunity. And yeah, just got to see how he develops as a player and as a person. And hopefully that helps as well, eventually to the first team.
I mean, yeah, you talked about his professionalism. I think he's still very mature for his age, too. He's 17 years old. He's played at the youth national team level. So obviously it takes a lot to get caught up there and the way you have to act there, too. I already think, like, right now he acts very mature for his age. But, yeah, obviously there's a lot more room for development, too, considering he's just getting started.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely. But obviously, like, what, for example, like what Ricky Pooch, not to compare him to Ricky Pooch, but I'm saying what Ricky Pooch has to deal with as a player of the first team is a lot more different than what Ruben Ramos has to, deal with, right? So that's what I'm just trying to say. And again, the talent's there, and I'm not comparing their talent. I'm just saying, like, obviously there is a difference between being a player from the academy and while being a player for, being an actual professional player with, getting paid and stuff like that. But obviously I agree. It's like he is very mature for his age, for a 17-year-old, and, obviously, we got to just wait to see what he develops, when he gets older and things like that. But definitely for sure, he's showed his, he shows maturity, he showed his talent, and it's just a matter of keep growing as a person, keep growing as a player. So that's ultimately what you want from one of your players from the academy and a young player in general. You just want to see how they develop and grow. But definitely for sure, he's definitely one to watch, and I think a lot of people are going to keep their eye out on him, especially after this, right? So they're definitely going to keep their eye on him and see what he becomes, with this team and with this club.
I mean, shout out to Cole Palmer's celebration too. That was pretty sick, actually, where he did that. That was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously, like I said, I didn't watch the game, but obviously, just in general, like again, for these kids, like, it's going to be special for them, and in general, they're going to remember this for the rest of their lives. So it's like, for them to celebrate it however they want, and I'm pretty sure, I know last year for the Rose Bowl game, they were there celebrating with the supporters. I'm pretty sure they're going to do the same thing this year, right? So like, obviously, they're going to get some pretty big moments for they're going to add more moments for them in their young career. So obviously, for them, like I said, they just got to celebrate, soak it all in, and then once time comes around, they got to focus and go make a three-peat, hopefully. But, obviously that's going to be tough in itself as well. But, yeah, congrats to the academies. Congrats to U17 for winning it. Congrats to U15 for making the final. But, obviously, unfortunately they lost. But, hey, that's going to, make those boys hungry into wanting to go back and to win it, just like their U17 team. So hopefully that motivates the boys as well. So congrats to the academy. Congrats to where they're going into the direction. And any other final thoughts about Galaxy News, anything like that before we move on?
No, congratulations to the academy. And yeah, just like you said, I'm very excited in the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Hopefully they keep it up, and we'll wait to see what they do next year. But now let's talk about San Jose this week, which is our game that we're going to preview. So this week we got San Jose at Stanford Stadium, a summertime classic that always happens every year, a Cali Clasico, the 101st Cali Clasico. So obviously we're now going into the next 100, I guess you can say. But Galaxy coming off of two great wins. Now they got to go up against a rival who necessarily hasn't been the best this season, but still it's a rivalry game, a game that you got to focus, a game that you want to win. And obviously this is going to be another important matchup for the team if they want to build off that momentum. So how do you feel about San Jose this week, and what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, obviously I think this game's just about staying the course, right? Staying on track, staying focused, not, drifting off anywhere else, not worrying about what we did in Salt Lake last week, not worrying about the Rose Bowl game. We just got to stay focused on this game, which I think, with past Galaxy teams, that kind of has been a problem, right? Like I remember in 2019, we played San Jose a week before the El Tráfico, and then we lost 3-1. And then last year we played San Jose before the Rose Bowl game, and we tied 2-2, and that was a game we both talked about we really should have won. So I think it's just about worrying about this game, doing what you need to do this game. Obviously, San Jose is not a very good opponent. They've only won 3 games all year. They're on pace to be the worst defense in league history, and we can probably tell that. They let in 5 goals versus New York City a few weeks ago. Obviously, they let in 6 goals over the weekend. And, we've scored on them 7 times in 2 games, so even with us, we've had a good time scoring on them. Which, definitely you think offensively we should have a big advantage on them with their defense. But I will say, there is, some room to be concerned, right? San Jose did have a coaching change over the weekend. And usually we do see, with teams with new coaches, they usually do come out a little more energized, kind of like a second wind a little bit. Few games, so you got to come out ready to play and match the energy for sure. You got to come out and understand San Jose is going to do something different. And for the Galaxy, too, going up there, it's definitely not easy either, playing in front of a big crowd. With San Jose, too, you have seen this year already. They played LAFC at Levi Stadium. They beat them 3-1. So you could say for San Jose, hey, whenever they play an LA rival at a big stadium, maybe they'll tend to show up a little more. They'll put in a better performance, which I do agree. I do think San Jose will put in a better performance than we've seen in recent weeks from them. But still, when you look at this Galaxy side and what they have to offer, I think they do have more than enough to win this game. Obviously, San Jose gives up a ton of chances. We should be able to score a lot of goals. Our defense has been solid, so we just got to stay course to this game. We got to stay honest about it. We got to beat the team in front of us, and we should be able to win this game definitely because we do have the quality to do it. But definitely about staying focused for this game and really worrying about the opponent at hand.
Yeah, take it one game at a time, baby. You know what I mean? But obviously it's for this team, it's San Jose is just not, let's just call it what there is, their shit, right? But, at the same time, it's they're still going to want to win this game. This is still their biggest game of the year because they played in Stanford, because it's a Cali Clasico, because it's the LA Galaxy. They're going to want to go in and win this. And they still got some pieces, right? They still got Christian Espinoza. They still got Ibovise. They still got, some pieces there to compete, but it's just a matter of fact that they just haven't won games, right? So, like you mentioned, they beat LAFC at Levi's, a few months ago. So it's they definitely know what it is when it comes to playing these type of big games. So, yeah, you can't take them for granted. Even though with what their place is and what their record is in the standings, it's like you still got to focus on this game if you really want to, you know, send a statement. I guess you got to beat them, right? So it's like, yeah, for the Galaxy, obviously they got the tools to beat this team. They got the tools to go out, but obviously San Jose are gonna find a way to maybe keep into this game, right? They did it last game, right? We were winning, 3-1. That ended up being 4-3 at the end of the night, right? So, San Jose are gonna look at that and say like, hey, we were managed to compete with this team. We kept up with this team, and they feel like they can do it again. So the Galaxy should not take them lightly at all. But on paper they should beat them. They definitely should. But yeah, I mean, obviously we'll see. Rivalry games, anything could happen. You're definitely going to have Ricky Puig in this one. In fact, he announced it on his story that he was going to play this weekend. Now, obviously, that's another question in itself is, does he start this game? Does he come off the bench? That's another question in itself, but obviously you're going to have Ricky Puig back, so that's a big plus. And yeah, obviously it's still going to be a tough game no matter what. But hopefully we go in with the right mindset. Don't get distracted. Keep focus on San Jose and nothing else. And like I said, keep it one game at a time. So that's what this Galaxy team needs to do, and they're going to they have to look at this game only.
I'll get to Ricky in a second, but one thing I will say though is Greg Vanney does have to make an adjustment this game as a coach, and it's that San Jose has a new signing now. They have Hernan Lopez, who's a center attacking midfielder. He's actually really good. And in the past when we played San Jose, they didn't have him. They didn't have a center attacking mid, so that changed the way our midfield was set up. That changed the way our defense was set up a little bit. So Greg Vanney will have to play in a certain way, knowing that San Jose has a new player, to make sure, we contain him well, we cover him well, and not let him, just find space in our midfield. So we have to defend the midfield a little bit differently, for sure, because they do have a new player in there.
Yeah, definitely, and I forgot about it. Like I said, I haven't watched much of San Jose. All I know is that they haven't been playing that good, but yeah, I mean, like I said, they still got pieces. They still got players to compete, right? It's just and like I said, they're gonna look at this game and they're gonna want to they're gonna try their best because it's one of their biggest games of the year. And playing at Stanford is always going to be a big deal over there for them, and it's a big deal for us too. Like it's not saying that this isn't important for us either. Like playing over there is still an important game for us. It's still a big game for us, and yeah, I mean, obviously, for San Jose, they're gonna have to, they're gonna try their best to compete with this team, and I think they still have the capability to do it, but they won't if we don't take them lightly and if we don't do the right things that we need to do.
I will say about Ricky too, though, like we have a really tough decision to make over the weekend, because the reality is we won 3 games in a row. All 3 games in a row were without him, and like we have a bit more of a defensive structure in our midfield that I think is working really well for us, and I think that's what's made us successful defensively, keeping 2 clean sheets. But the reality of Ricky Puig is like, if he's playing, like, I just don't see him being that type of guy that's going to say, like, oh, yeah, like, I'll stay on the bench, I'll sacrifice for you guys. Like, he's that type of guy, especially, like, for this week when you have, the Cali Clasico in front of 40,000 people, you have the Rose Bowl game coming up. I mean, the reality is he's going to want to play in both of these games, and what did the Galaxy do about that now that you're playing really well right now? Do you put him back in the starting lineup this game? Do you bring him off the bench? Honestly, what I think is the best solution is... Because look, like, if you want to say one of our weaknesses over the last 3-game winning streak was that we don't create a lot of chances. We won games because we were clinical and we defended well, but we didn't create a lot of chances. So maybe you bring him back to create more of those chances and get other guys involved. But, I think the guy that's going to have to sacrifice right now, because Diego Fagundes is also playing really well and we found something with him, is Painter, probably because he has not played very well these last 2 games. And like I still think bringing in one of the fastest guys in the league off the bench, I think is a really good asset to have. And yeah, I think, still starting Diego Fagundes with the way he's been playing. Obviously, Fagundes is like the opposite of starter Joveljic last year, right? Joveljic can never win a game in the starting lineup. Fagundes can't seem to lose a game in the starting lineup. So I think you still have to ride with that, keep him in. But, if Ricky Puig, I mean, it is going to change our midfield. It's going to change the way we defend. Obviously, he's a guy that doesn't really like to defend that much, which is fair. He has a lot of offensive responsibilities, but... Yeah, Freaky Pooch is available to play this weekend, and he said he is, and Greg Venny said, like, this weekend he should be fully ready to go. It's like, I think he's going to start, honestly. I do think he's going to start. I don't think he's going to want to stay. I think he's going to play. I think eventually maybe he will come out because he is coming off somewhat of an injury, but yeah, I think he's going to be a part of our team this weekend. I think Joseph Panso could be the guy that possibly, takes the seat for Diego Fagundes to continue to start, which I think would be the right decision.
I think you can look at it either way. I think you can go. I mean, because at the same time he is coming off an injury. Do you want to, I guess, start him right away, put him in that? And you're right. Like, obviously, Ricky Pooch is going to want to play this game. It's a rivalry game, and obviously he's going to want to, also the El Tráfico and the Rose Bowl. Like, he's going to want to play that, and he's going to want to be in best shape as he can be. But I mean, I feel like you could make the argument, and I feel like maybe you should sit him and then bring him on later in the game just to build him in. But because, like you said, it is a hard decision to make with Diego Fagundes. He's been playing very well, and I think, he deserves to play again and start again. And you mentioned Painstill. Maybe he's being the odd one out, and you bring him off the bench, but he's also coming off an injury, and you want him to start getting back into rhythm and being a starter. So I don't think putting him on the bench is necessarily going to help him into getting back into being a starter again and playing from the start. So it's a very tough sacrifice to make, but I think for me it's like you bring him off the bench later on in the game, and and again, maybe it's a close game like these past couple games where we weren't creating as many chances, and maybe, but we were still making it close. The defense is still playing well, and then Ricky Pooch comes on in the second half. He starts creating more, and then that's when we start getting the advantage. So I think that there is different ways you can look at it. I think for me personally, you should maybe not start him and then build him back into the game, depending how the game is. But you could also make the argument that yes, he should start again, maybe not play the whole 90 minutes, but at least start him, give him the confidence back in as well, and then try to put the San Jose side away early. So that's also another thing as well. But I don't know. It's a very difficult decision for sure. But again, the Galaxy can go many ways with it, but. I guess we'll just have to see what they do with it. But definitely he's going to be available this weekend, and we're going to see him play this weekend. It's just a matter of when he plays and, how long he plays as well.
Knowing Ricky playing a rivalry game in front of 40,000 plus people, I mean, let's be honest, he's going to want to start, right? And I think if he's fully available to start and fully healthy, I think he's going to be in the first team from the first whistle.
I mean, no doubt about it. I think any player would want to play in a rivalry game if they're fully available, right? So it's like, but I think it's also just trying to manage the minutes and also like, I mean, not saying that Ricky has a favorite or anything like that, but I feel like Ricky just probably wants to be more available for the Rose Bowl game than this one. And not saying he doesn't care about this one. I'm pretty sure he does. He wants to play it. But obviously we've seen a lot of Ricky moments in the El Tráfico than we have seen him in, in the Cali Clasico. So that's just my opinion. Again, not saying that that's his motivation or that's his motive, but I'm just saying like that's probably, something that you could think about as well. But I mean, again, it's interesting to see what direction that they go with. And again, I think either or can happen, but obviously it's interesting. But of course we're going to see Ricky play in this game. It's just a matter of fact of when and how, I guess.
I mean, I'd argue we've seen him a lot in both games, actually. Not really more Cali Clasico or El Tráfico. I think we've seen him a lot in both games, really. I don't think it's really one or the other. I think he just shows up in these games in general.
Well, true. I guess you're right, but I mean, I'm just saying because everybody, everybody remembers Ricky holding up the shirt. Everybody remembers the Rose Bowl goal that he had, and I don't know. Again, that's just my opinion. Again, that maybe it's not, nobody has to agree with me. And again, not saying that's his motive either, but that was just the way I was, I guess, thinking right now. But again, interesting to see if we see if we see Ricky start or not, but I guess we'll have to wait till Saturday when that happens. But anyways, do you have any other final thoughts about the game this weekend before we go?
Yeah, definitely a very winnable game. Would love to get 4 wins in a row. That would be a great thing. And yeah, hopefully we go out there, we stay focused and get the job done.
Yeah, hopefully we do. We got to go get the job done for against the rival, because you always want to beat a rival, right? So got to make the most of it and got to hopefully we win this game. You never know. But anyways, yeah, that's going to be it for the episode. Can't thank you all enough for watching and listening. If you want to follow me at Insider Galaxy on Instagram, on X. Go follow the Galaxy Central on Instagram. And yeah, obviously, thank you guys for, again, listening and watching another long episode for us. And, we're glad you were able to stick around for the whole thing. So thank you guys. But anything you want to say to the listeners and watchers before we go?
Yeah, we definitely had a great week last week. It was definitely very good to get 3 wins in a row, and hopefully we keep building off that.
Yeah, hopefully we do. Hopefully we do keep building off of that momentum. And for those who are traveling up to Stanford, obviously stay safe. Represent the club well, represent the Galaxies and the G's. Whenever traveling. So because obviously for RSL, great representation for us, and hopefully that keeps up with the Stanford game. Also, another thing I did actually want to mention before we closed out the show. This was something that I forgot to mention, I guess, in the sort of Galaxy news area, but obviously just something I wanted to touch on a little bit. But this is obviously, I want to give a little shout out to the News Across the Galaxy guys, because obviously the one of their members, Eddie, started a little bit of not necessarily a supporter group, but a group that focuses on being sober, and obviously starting a group where there's a alcohol-free zone within the stadium. And I think that was something that was announced early this week, and I wanted to say that's something awesome for the team. That's something awesome for for the community to have an alcohol safe free zone, and for him to share his story, and the difficulties with dealing with alcohol and things like that. I think that was awesome for him to share, and I just wanted to say, go follow that group. I think it's on IG, Sobriety or something like that. I forget the name, but obviously it is a group that focuses on an alcohol free game day experience. So I just wanted to mention that, just for something for people who are interested, and hopefully that becomes a big thing, because I think that's awesome for the community. But that was going to be my shout out to those guys, and shout out for them for starting that. But anyways, like I said, to close it out, thank you guys for watching and listening. Be a friend, tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to this podcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, rest of your week, and let's go get that dub. Thank you guys, and cheese up.
7 words.